Hello, I'm Theo Black.
And I'm Sarah Black.
Movie stars, limousines, and beautiful beaches.
Crime, poverty, and human suffering.
What is the real Los Angeles?
And can you find it in the movies? Hey Theo, what did we watch?
LA Confidential.
There are jobs aplenty, and land is cheap. Every working man can have his own house.
Today we are drinking Old Fashions in honor of LA Confidential, I guess, and its view back into film noirs of the past. Cheers.
This is a good cockatil.
If you'd like to drink one, find the recipe down below in the description.
And if you'd prefer a virgin version, that will be below as well. But this is not a virgin version.
Hey. For the record, spoilers. We're talking about everything about the movie in no particular order. Spoilers.
Okay, Los Angeles in the 1940s, and all is not what it seems. Crime is rampant, and 3 cops who may or may not be good guys start trying to solve some murders. In the end, there is a fantastic gunfight at a motel, and that's it.
Yay! The end of our video. Oh wait, no, not really. Sarah, you have seen this movie a few times. Why have you seen it a few times?
Russel Crowe is hot. Now that we've got that covered. I love the story. I love the way in Alien Prey.
Just gonna relate everything to Alien Prey.
Everything goes back to Alien Prey. You don't know who the bad guy is because everybody's awful. In LA Confidential, you don't know who the good guy is because everybody's awful. And what's really going on here?
What do you mean they might have?
Like you're watching the movie, so you should know, but you don't actually necessarily.
Yes, as the movie goes on, you become kind of less certain and things change and you question reality. Okay, that's taking a little too far.
Yeah, we're going sci-fi with that.
That's pushing it a little bit.
Come to Los Angeles.
Okay, so the film opens on Danny DeVito doing a voiceover. He's reading an article that he's writing, and this movie is basically planting a giant flag in front of your face as a viewer, at least it's supposed to, because basically this is the filmic metaphor.
Yes.
It's paradise on Earth. That's what they tell you anyway.
Danny DeVito is talking about how
they're selling an image.
They're selling you on something, and it's not really what you're getting.
Yes.
And it's actually like this narration is basically laying out what you're going to be seeing in the movie.
You'd think this place was the Garden of Eden, but there's trouble in paradise.
And it's doing it in a way where it's fairly obvious. At the same time, it's not.
It's laying out the theme. It's not laying out the plot.
Yeah.
Although it hints at stuff, it brings up Mickey Cohen and things that you don't even know are going to come up later.
I mean, it sets up the whole movie.
Yeah.
In a way, and you're not entirely sure how much of it will be relevant.
You don't know that it's setting up the entire movie. It's clever that way.
But all is not well.
And at the end of his voiceover, we go into Mickey Cohen.
You're under arrest. Non-payment of federal income tax.
Which is how they got some of the Chicago mobsters.
What worked for Al Capone would work for the Mixter.
And an important thing to note, Mickey Cohen is a real guy. And in fact, in this movie, there are a lot of real people sprinkled in with the fake people. Mickey Cohen really was a gangster in Los Angeles, and he really was put away for tax law evasion. Theo, who do you know that's real in this, or do I have to?
So I know that there are things sprinkled in that are real. For instance, the TV set that Vincennes is consulting on is basically just harkening back to Dragnet.
Yes. Dragnet's crazy, man. You ever watch Dragnet?
You've made me watch a few of those, yeah.
It goes back.
Yeah. Also, the event in the jail is the bloody massacre of Halloween.
That's some revisionist history going on there. We call it
Bloody Christmas.
Should I pull my...
Oh, yes, you should bring your... Bloody Christmas is actually based on a real thing. Here's an article from some era that is about how Bloody Christmas is actually a real thing. This has been in Sarah's drawer for 2 decades? Who
Probably,
knows?
just about.
Yeah.
Johnny Stompanato really was Mickey Cohen's right-hand man. He really did date Lana Turner. They don't go into it, but Lana Turner's daughter really did murder him with a knife, possibly in self-defense. And then a lot of the locations are real LA locations. We have the Formosa, the Frolic Room.
I think they actually just shut the Formosa down. Although I
No,
know
they're revitalizing
they're
it.
revitalizing it?
They're doing something.
I used to work right next to the Formosa,
Yeah.
so it was actually hilarious because I'd seen the movie years ago. Kind of like, oh, that's a cool cafe. Worked at this job I had, quit that job. Here I am, watching LA Confidential, and oh, that's the place right
Yeah.
next to the Mendocino Farms I had to go get food for people for.
I've actually never been inside of it. I've driven by it.
I know, I feel like that's how we have, after this we have to go to the Formosa Cafe.
Right. And then, a lot of it's shot on location, so it's like, this street corner is really real.
Yeah, and even in the section where Exley and Bud are going to find the woman who's been raped, which we'll talk about in a minute, those were just old buildings in LA that had never been renovated and never been fixed.
And Pierce Pratchett's home, that's a famous Richard Neutra house up in the hills.
Yeah. The setting actually really matters to this movie.
Yes.
Because more than just, we're talking about all these real things that happen, real locations. LA is thought of as this huge fake place. You know, it's full of people who are fakers. It's full of fake people.
Yes. Fake
the
boobs.
Whole fake boobs. It's full of just plastic everywhere.
Yeah. I think only Las Vegas gets more maligned than Los Angeles in this arena.
Probably true, yeah. But we are LA natives.
Yes.
And there are actually people who live in LA who are from LA. And while we sometimes feel like unicorns, it's actually not that uncommon. And it's really...
but I tend to feel like people who moved to LA from somewhere else, like they're more genuine Angelinos than we are. We're something else.
Yeah, we're something else. We're some sort of, I don't know, forgotten...
To really be from LA, you have to have moved there, I think.
Yeah. But the thing, though, my belief, and you'll have to follow with me on a personal belief and not talking about movies for a second, is that people always say LA is fake, but I've always felt that people are so honest in LA because everybody is so honestly trying to make it.
Yeah.
Whether they're trying to make it in film, in the film industry, in anything from modeling to doing sports and living out here because it's beautiful. People just trying to, there's so much industry here that has nothing to do with film. There's, anything from SpaceX to, we have a ton, a huge veterans hospital. Just everything
Los Angeles
in LA.
originally grew based on its aviation industry.
Right?
Yeah, in the 40s for World War II, yeah.
And so it's like, I think LA is a really real place. And I think I think the director and, the screenwriter, that's a part of it, is that they're setting it in LA because they're kind of trying to trick you.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, here's, LA, it's all fake. But really, it's all real. It's based on all these real events.
There's a lot of depth underneath it.
Yeah.
We're honest in our fakeness, but then we've got stuff underneath, too. You just have to, get to know us a little better.
We're really, really very lovable if you just get to know us.
But if we want your part or anything that you might be getting, we might screw you over to get it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But that's also an honesty, too. Everybody's
Yeah.
just so...
People do that everywhere.
Yeah, that's not unique to LA. There's just more people in LA doing it.
Yeah.
And very hush, hush.
On to the movie. After Danny DeVito's voiceover, we're introduced to the 3 main characters of the movie, which are Bud White, Ed Exley, and Jack Vincennes. And we basically get a scene for each character that is completely to set up what archetype and who they are. Bud White is with a fat old guy who's his partner, and he goes and beats the shit out of a man because he's beating his wife up. So we've got our thug, right?
We've got our thud, Bud White.
We meet Ed Exley, who is talking to the newspaper and trying to put on the best face he possibly can.
I saw the test results on the lieutenant's exam. First out of 23.
Upward climbing, ambitious, political type.
You're a political animal. You have the eye for human weakness, but not the stomach.
And Jack Vincennes, who is the one who's consulting on the Dragnet type show.
I'm the technical advisor. I teach Brett Chase how to walk and talk like a cop.
He's like the Hollywood cop, but not the bad movie, the Hollywood cop. The like...
Points if you knew what we were talking about.
But and these people exist. He wants to consult on shows and be in the paper for doing his deeds and so on.
You pinch him, I do you up nice feature next issue.
And they really they're really careful about how they set the characters up. We then see, Bud White gets set up beating the wife beater up. We also then see him go to a liquor store, and he meets one of our other characters, Kim Basinger, whose real name is Lynn something.
Well, it's Lynn Brackett, whose real name is Kim Basinger. Actually, worth noting is that he tries to come on to her a little bit, and she immediately notices that he's a cop.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, officer.
We also set up characters like the police commissioner, Dudley Smith.
Now remember, Bobby, that's Smith with an S.
He early on kind of quizzes Ed Exley.
Would you be willing to plant corroborative evidence on a suspect you knew to be guilty in order to ensure an indictment?
Dudley, we've been over this.
Yes or no, Edmund?
No.
With the implication being that you should be willing to go a little too far sometimes.
Yeah, it's actually such a great scene because it both sets Ed Exley up as being so by the book, screw yourself to get ahead, like all of that, and that he won't compromise.
Yeah.
Along with Dudley, who sort of is set up as this. He's a cop, but he's kind of a bad cop, good cop sort of deal where he's seeking his own justice.
It's hard not to sympathize on some level with the feeling that someone's going to get away with something.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's where it can play into anyone's feelings. Is like, if you know someone did something wrong, but you can't prove it, that is really frustrating.
I mean, yeah, and Dudley is willing to go the extra mile to try and get that person, and Ed Exley is a believer in the system.
And the rules.
And the rules.
And all of that leads to the perfect confrontation of the three in a scene that kind of encapsulates all of that, which is the Bloody Christmas scene, which is based on something that really happened, where some cops got beaten up by some Mexican immigrants.
Yeah.
Supposedly not too bad, but they ended up in that local precinct, and
as they're putting the people into jail, the Mexican immigrants.
Yeah, the cops there who've all drank too much start getting, ready to administer some justice themselves.
They brought the Mexicans in. They're downstairs.
So you have Bud White's fat partner just drunk and ready to beat everyone up.
Yeah.
And this whole confrontation that you can see coming. And then the way each cop of the three that we've met so far deals with it is exactly who they seem to be.
This doesn't concern you. Come on, guys.
I mean, and my favorite part of that scene is that Exley is trying vainly from the back to guys! I mean,
guys, don't do that!
Yeah, it's not quite that, but it's as realistic a version of that as they can do.
Yeah.
And Bud White comes and just knocks everyone to the side. And they do this throughout the movie.
Yeah.
To make Russel Crowe seem like a badass. They'll have one person hold Ed Exley back and 6 can barely hold Bud White back because he's a tank. And so they even use that in this moment. And Ed Exley ends up in a closet. Vincennes only punches someone because his white jacket gets blood on it. Hey! And Bud White beats the fuck out of someone because they insult his mom.
Yeah, and fuck your mother! Fuck you!
And it's all done so well because it's not pulling you in any one direction. Each character gets a moment. I think even Dudley gets a moment somewhere in there. It's not pulling you in the direction of it being such a character moment that you're like, God, I'm just looking at this character. There's also plot happening because it leads to the next moment of the movie. Mm-hmm. There's focus on the story because, you're really learning about the whole world and each character within that world. It's great. You aren't taken out of the movie because you are like, wait, why am I just watching this?
Yeah.
You actually really feel like, oh, I'm watching this for a reason.
Yeah. And it leads kind of to the next moment, which sets up the tension between the three men. Mostly between White and Exley.
Yeah.
With Vincennes just kind of being this piece of fluff that hangs out.
He's back.
Hey, Jack's back.
And so that leads to more of Exley being Exley and White being White, and just the kind of tension between someone who's more interested in following the rules and climbing the ladder and someone who actually does want to see justice done, but he mostly seems to accomplish it and only think he can accomplish it by punching people. Which, be still my heart.
You just want to see men beat each other up.
A little bit. We watched it on the big screen. We haven't mentioned...
Oh, we haven't even talked about this. Insert photos of us at the Orpheum Theater watching this.
And it really came back to me watching it on the big screen. Not only do they have like 6 people hold back White, but every time he punches someone, it sounds like bones are breaking. Like, it is amazing.
It really, you feel the weight of it.
I want you to cut in a series of bone-crushing punches now.
It just happened. It was great.
Okay, great. And now, it wouldn't be a bad movie if it took those kind of great archetypes and just followed through on the kind of fates that those kind of men who are real people would reach, and we've seen them reach in other movies that are similar. In fact, It's more noir to just have these characters set up and just they're stuck on this track basically to the end of the line, which is often death. But instead, this movie is about kind of discovering who these people really are, and even their own discoveries of who they really are. And that starts, so the first section of the movie is really the Bloody Christmas section.
Yeah.
The second section is the Night Owl section.
It's a combination of the Night Owl and then also everybody getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And in both situations, you start to see that while everybody fits their archetype, there's just a little something in their character that's going to twist in these next sections.
Right. The twist comes around as Vincennes, who works with the Danny DeVito character we met in the beginning, becomes unsettled with what he's doing and the fact that he is fucking people over so that he gets screen time. And people who maybe are unwittingly, victimizing themselves, but he's part of why they're ending up in such a bad place.
Yeah.
Sucking the mayor off and ending up with their throat slit in a motel.
Vincennes start to look at himself as like, what am I doing? But it also gives the audience that moment to be like, oh, look deeper than the stereotype.
Yeah. Well, because he decides before the kid gets killed. Because it's basically the second time that he's screwing this kid over. And this kid is a little bit of a dum-dum for falling for it.
Have we met before?
But I think he feels his own culpability.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's worth that money he's looking at.
And you feel genuinely bad for Vincennes too, I think, because I think all of us want to get ahead, and maybe some people identify more with Bud or Exley, but there's a lot of people who are like Vincennes who kind of want to do their job, but get something extra done on the side.
Yeah.
That's the real thing. And you sort of can see when he feels bad about he gets someone killed, but like you can be relatable in a less severe situation of like,
I think that's true for all the characters, because we're all conflicted. I mean, okay, maybe not all of us are conflicted, but those people are horrible. Most of us grapple with questions and what's the right thing to do. And, I really want X, but to get X, I might have to do Y. And let's be honest, sometimes you have to go along with things you don't want to go along with, or you have to pretend to be someone you're not. And I think that's where all three of the characters, whether, I can't beat anybody up, it's not making the noise.
Do it again. This time I'll insert the noise. It sounded great.
Great. But it's that you know, it's that feeling of being stuck in who you are.
It's that certain kind of inertia where you are who you are, and that's who you want to be, but there's always something you want to work on and change.
Yeah.
And, you know, Vincent starts to feel like, well, I'm doing these awful things and doing these bad things to these people. Is that really who I am?
Yeah.
And let's talk about the other characters a little bit too. Bud has a romance with the Kim Basinger, who is actually Lynn somebody, I think.
Right.
Who starts to convince him, hey, you're not just a bruiser. There's a brain in there somewhere.
Yeah.
You found Patchett. You found me. You're smart enough.
He's convinced by his own situation. Like, he doesn't see himself as anything more than a bruiser.
Just the guy they bring in to scare the other guy shitless.
Yeah, and there's so many people who are like that, who are, you know, athletes or
who don't feel very smart.
Who don't feel very smart. And, you know, maybe Bud isn't the smartest tool in the shed, but, you know, he is more than just somebody who punches people. He does have enough of it in himself to be able to, like, track a case.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with the Night Owl. I just can't prove it, that's all.
And Exley, who's come out of this the best.
Yeah.
I mean, we really didn't even go into exactly why, and I think we will go into it.
Yeah.
But who basically gets ahead for killing the wrong people. He starts to examine, you know, this is great. I've ended up where I want, but I don't think justice was actually done.
Yeah, and he starts to see that, you know, well, I mean, the movie maybe says bending the rules is sometimes what you need to do. And Ed Exley is somewhere on the line of, well, you know, I need to bend the rules a little bit, but not too much. At least that's where he's going towards, because he's starting to feel... He
goes against authority, is what he does. He goes against the rules. He's been told to do one thing, you know, and he does something else. He takes action on his own.
Anything bothering you about the Night Owl case?
And in these ways, the characters are starting to subvert the archetype that's been set up.
Yeah.
It really begins to show that they aren't just who they are.
Yeah.
You know, there's more to them. And even in some major ways, too, they start to subvert it.
They aren't just who they seem.
They aren't just who they seem.
They are just who they are.
They are just who they are.
I mean, and another person to bring into this now would be the Kim Basinger, Lynn Bracken character, because, again, going with the whole theme of the movie, she's a prostitute.
Yeah. Dressed
up to look like Veronica Lake.
Yeah.
So there's another level of image versus reality.
Yeah.
And one of the sexiest lines in this whole movie is Bud White, where she says,
"You're different, Officer White. You're the first man in 5 years who didn't tell me I look like Veronica Lake inside of a minute."
You look better than Veronica Lake.
And so we've really covered the characters, but if we go back to the story, you know, Bloody Christmas happens, everybody gets in a bit of trouble to some degree.
Except Exley.
Except Exley, who is not in trouble, and because he doesn't get in trouble, he's the lieutenant detective, or whatever his position is.
It's very important. He become detective lieutenant.
Yes. And he goes to the Night Owl, which is where a huge murder has just taken place.
Right, but he does not know that going in.
Yeah, and it's actually multiple murders, too.
Yes.
And he walks into basically a scene out of a horror movie, yeah? Everybody's been murdered. They're in the restroom.
It is creepy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you see that life was interrupted. And there's something about the life interrupted moment and coming across like something right after something terrible has happened. That's just a creepy moment.
And it's really doing a couple things here, because it's informing the story, again, it's informing the plot. It's not just being a scene to be a scene, it's a part of the whole flow. But it's also actually kind of hiding things for the viewer. And the viewer doesn't know it yet.
Yes.
The viewer is just like, wow, this is weird and creepy. What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes on to be like, well, we think it was these 3 black guys because this is the 40s and 50s and there's plenty of racism.
3 Negro juveniles.
And it's going, and then the story follows to go after them, and we see Ed actually interviewing them at the police station.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually doing a really good job of it, and he starts to impress people doing this.
Yeah.
This is like a bit of credit he earns back with everybody. Is
Well,
how
yeah,
well he does
because
it.
we think, I mean, as an audience member, you probably think he's a bit of an asshole at this point. And when you see how well he can play people, you admire it a little bit.
All right, Raymond. Tell me one more thing about Jones and Fontaine. Where do they get their drugs?
Roland Navarrete.
And then when you see Russel Crowe break a chair.
Tell me where...
And it becomes something more, too, because Ed actually is grilling them about the Night Owl, because that's where we think they've come from.
Right.
You know, they're the ones who've done it. And it actually starts to be suddenly about, well, one of this guys starts crying. They've actually raped a girl.
Yeah.
And we then follow the story as it goes to them running, going down the street, and they're actually looking for the girl. Bud shoots the guy who's got the girl and makes it look like the guy tried to shoot him, and inserting his own kind of justice, which also informs the character.
Yeah.
Every scene is doing so much in this movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's rewatching it on the big screen. There is no scene in this movie that doesn't
do something.
In
And
an era
things.
where action movies have action scenes so that we can watch action, to see a movie where there's action scenes that also show character, that also move the plot, is like...
It's so nice. It's actually hiding the real story.
Yes.
Which is the funny thing, we're getting into this layer. This movie is full of layers. As Danny DeVito says, LA isn't what it seems. This story isn't what it seems.
Yes. And we know, because as a modern audience, when you see a horrible murder that happens randomly in the middle of a movie, and 3 black guys get in trouble for it, you're like, that seems suspicious.
Yes. I would like to think that most modern audiences are aware of that. Something's going on.
It's not going back, you're not watching it going like, yeah, get those guys, fuck them. Like, no, you're like, no, this can't be you know there's a real story you're not seeing.
Yeah, you get mad at the guys once you've realized they raped a woman.
Yeah.
But until then, you're like, it's just 3 black guys. It's corruption,
Yeah, they're just getting the easiest people.
Yeah.
And you're anticipating what's the true story here.
Yeah, and in a way, I think how it's so good is that it's just a feeling.
Yeah.
It's not so obvious that you pick up on it right away. It's not so obvious that you're like, oh, something's about to happen. It's sort of in the back of your mind.
And they still do give you the rape, because these 3 guys do end up shot to death.
Yeah.
It makes you feel a little less bad about that.
Yeah.
But it also... No one's innocent in this movie, really, right?
Yeah, there's no character who's innocent.
I mean, these guys didn't perhaps deserve to get shot to death. I don't know. Let's not touch that subject.
Yeah, that's actually, I don't know.
But they did get shot for the wrong crime. And because of that, maybe someone else is getting away with murder.
I got a couple of Night Owl questions.
Don't know if you read the papers, but that case is closed.
Anything bother you about it, Ray?
And so the next part of the story is Exley and Bud starting to figure out, well, something's wrong here.
Separately,
not together. Because, again, they still don't like each other. Even at the end of one of these, I think, where they get the girl, they save the girl, Exley gets mad at Bud because Exley knows Bud has murdered that guy.
Yes.
A naked guy with a gun? You expect anyone to believe that?
And basically, Bud is trying to find out what's happened because... his partner was one of the guys that got killed at the Night Owl.
Hell of a way to avoid a prison sentence.
Ed starts to get bothered by the rape victim.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, maybe they left me in time to shoot those people. Whatever. I just wanted them to die.
I did what I had to do for justice.
I mean, and he did kill these guys, and to a certain extent, maybe that, I'm only thinking about this now, but maybe that, in a way, he was holding himself above a person like Bud White.
Yeah.
Because he is kind of a rank-and-file cop. He doesn't have to shoot people, and now he's had this brutal moment that he's been a part of.
Yeah.
That might change his own view of himself,
yeah,
too.
And
somebody isn't cleaned up.
Shotgun it. Come on, kid.
And just stepping back one step, the story has both hidden it for the characters, Bud and Ed Exley, but also for the viewer, because we've been distracted by them going after these guys and being like, well, did they really do it? And then, oh, wait, they raped this girl. And you've been distracted by all of this. It's really distracting the viewer so that we're not paying as much attention that something's wrong is going on.
Yeah.
And Ed and Bud are in the story, and they're distracted because now they've got this new crime they have to go on, which they think is connected to the Night Owl.
Yeah.
It's great how it's hiding, there's these layers of how it's hiding things, because it's both tricking the audience and the characters in similar but different ways.
And then meanwhile, Vincennes has kind of been researching a separate line that ends up tying in with it all.
Yeah, he's the, with these great crime novels or stories where there's two different crimes that are actually connected.
What Robert Downey Jr. likes in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, a lot of it even becomes about the dual nature that we've now seen, because Bud does want to find justice and he wants to do the right thing, but he also gets really angry sometimes. And he's been set up by people who know that about him.
Yeah.
He's had this relationship with the Veronica Lake lookalike, and she has now slept with Exley.
And you feel for Bud because, I mean, he really loves this woman. And this woman, it seems, really loves him too. And you're seeing two things because, Bud is starting to subvert his archetype. And this woman is subverting her dumb prostitute archetype. She's a part of it too.
Actually, the funny thing about her is she's the one that, is the most innocent of them all.
She's the most innocent of them all, and she's oddly the most aware of them all, of how things are going. Not even that she knows what's going to happen. She just sort of is wiser than them in a way.
But without knowing anything about what's actually going on.
Yeah. And you feel bad for both of them when Bud hits her.
Yeah.
It's such a down moment.
Yeah.
And,
in the theater, everybody gasped.
Everybody gasped because Bud immediately feels so bad about it. And she, understands that it's because he's just gotten really angry, and it doesn't even seem like she really hates him for it. She's just shocked that he's done it.
Yeah. I think she feels she deserves it on some level. And none of this is right. You don't ever deserve to be hit by anyone.
Yeah, but, or woman, or non-binary, or whatever.
Life is messy, and people are messy, and people do things they don't mean to do, and this is just what this movie is. This is what happens.
This is what happens. This movie isn't about everything being on one side or the other. It's shades of gray.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
That's the whole point. It's just all these grays.
I mean, and, her sleeping with Exley, but she thought she was doing a good thing. I mean, it's just a big mess. Life's a big mess.
Yeah.
And so Exley is willing to bring Bud in on it, because at this point, Exley's on his own, because Vincennes...
Well, originally he brings Vincennes in on it.
Right.
And it's actually, there's a couple of, moments that happen between him and Vincennes that are great.
She is Lana Turner.
What?
She is Lana Turner.
And we're glossing over the Vincennes character a little bit because it's really so focused on Bud and Ed. But Vincennes is having his tangential story where he's discovering there's something corrupt in the politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And he meets Ed, sort of, their stories start to meet. And Ed asks him something like, well, why did you become a cop? Because they're asking each other.
This is that pivotal moment where they're really deciding, it's Vincennes deciding if he wants to work with Exley. And he says, why did you become a cop? And Rollo Tomasi's name comes up from Exley.
Yeah.
And Ed turns it around.
Why'd you become a cop?
I don't remember.
It is the most heartrending answer.
In a way, it's actually, out of all three of them, it's the most heartbreaking in a way.
Yeah.
Because he's so because he doesn't even play it up that big, but you can tell it so genuinely hurts him in a way that he doesn't remember.
Well, he's our tragic figure in the end, because he's the one.
Sorry, Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.?
Sorry, Kevin Spacey. You mentioned him earlier in something.
For Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
Kiss, Kiss,
so
Bang,
your
Bang.
mind was on it, but it really it would be a completely different movie if that were Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. So we lose Kevin Spacey, and that's also a pivotal scene because, Vincennes tricks at Dudley Smith, James Cromwell, I think is his real name, and says,
I don't even think he's meaning to do it. It's just what his mind is on as he's dying.
Yeah, and it's two things. We see that Vincennes has chosen the right path, and we don't get to see the completion of his character arc because he dies.
Yeah.
His character arc doesn't complete, and then he dies, which happens in some movies, and it's always stupid. You want there to feel an interruption in the character arc, because it hits home much more when Vincennes dies. You don't even necessarily think Vincennes, Bud, Ed, or any of them are good guys, but you still feel for them anyways.
Yeah.
And you feel for Vincennes when he dies. And it also sets up Dudley Smith, because we've just been thinking he's the police chief. We haven't equated him with any of the backstory of Mickey Cohn. We haven't equated him with any of that.
We know he's a little crooked, though, because he's the one that's got Bud beating people up in an empty motel.
But we don't know how crooked he is.
Yes. We think that he's doing the wrong thing for the right reason.
And it turns out he's doing the wrong things for the wrong reason.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And all of this is building, in a way, the anticipation of Bud and Ed Exley.
That's been set up since the beginning. That's been set up since Bud knocked Exley aside to get in and try and calm a situation, only to make it worse.
Yeah, since they nearly fought each other.
Supposed to stay away from a man when his blood is up.
His blood's always up.
The whole deal, it's leading towards this section, and it's even these different sequences of them sort of figuring things out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
You want that to happen because you want to see their characters have that character arc, but you're also...
Because they have to. They're not going to come together and,
just randomly.
Yeah, and somehow they both as characters need to reach a point where then they can work together, and it does mean beating Exley up.
Wait.
It's the thing that has to happen that's still kind of surprised that it happens.
Yes.
And it's great.
And it leads to them really kind of accepting each other for who they are, because at this point Ed is perfectly okay with trying things his way, going in to talk to the mayor, who thinks he's seeing a good cop, bad cop.
Come on, don't pull that good cop, bad cop crap. I practically invented it.
No.
Pull him off me, Exley! I don't know how.
Is this how you used to play good cop, bad cop?
Is that how you used to run the good cop, bad cop?
And you get this sort of small moment, too, that we both love, where Ed or Bud tosses Ed or Bud the keys.
Ed tosses Bud the keys.
Keys.
And it's just, it's a small moment that highlighted just enough that you're like, they're finally in sync.
Yes. And now that they're finally getting along, shit goes to hell.
You wanted to meet here? You called it. I thought Sid Hutchins was... Hutchins is dead.
And I've seen this movie between 9 and 10 million times. And rewatching it, I finally... There's the climactic battle at the Victory Motel. And we are following Bud. And Bud's the one who gets a call saying they want you out at the Victory Motel. And he goes out, and he's got a bunch of guns because he knew something might happen.
Yeah.
And Ed says...
You figured this was a setup and you showed up anyway?
And I'm realizing, watching it, that Bud probably knew that Exley had also gotten a call, and if he didn't show up, Exley was going to be all by himself out there.
Yeah.
So, you can even read stuff... I mean, and they don't say that in the movie.
Yeah, but
I mean, he did come prepared, so you knew he... And what he says is...
A lot of bad stuff happened here. As good a place as any for it to end.
But I think, really, he wasn't going to leave Exley on his own.
Yeah, and they have genuine compassion for each other. That's a moment of genuine compassion that you're not going to let someone just die on their own. And, we then get into our action scene, and this...
It's the best.
It's the best.
I hate action movies. We've gone over this. I love this scene so much. I'm medium on cinematography. I notice when it's really bad. The cinematography in this scene is amazing.
this is probably the moment to talk about the cinematography even, because the whole movie, the cinematography harkens back to film noir.
Dick Stensland. As it happens, he was a Night Owl regular. In the wrong place at the wrong time.
But the cinematography actually isn't showing too much of itself. It's really, the point is that it's realistic.
Are you Pierce Patchett?
Noir cinematography could get very stylized, and this is not as stylized.
And this is not as stylized. It's more modern in a way because it's taking that style and it's using it as an accent and not as an upfront in your face sort of thing. You really get to see everything, and in this action scene,
all I ever wanted was to measure up to my father.
It's almost harkening back to noir because the logic behind it is that there are cars outside with their headlights pointed at this building.
Yeah.
And it is causing bright light to flood through every bullet hole.
Yeah.
And then Ed and Bud are darting back and forth, and it's hitting them, and the bad guys that pop in.
But you can see all the bad guys. You can see what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not shaking the camera. It's not like a super tight angle. It's letting you see the action. It wants you to know what's happening. Yeah. And it's so nice to not have to be like, I don't know where the fucking characters are in the scene. I don't know who's doing what. I don't know how many bad guys there are.
They even do to let you know that Bud's underground right before he does the most amazing shoot someone from under the ground and then come up and shoot like 2 or 3 other guys. And Bud is the one doing the heavy lifting with the fighting. Exley shoots some people, but let's be honest, it's Bud White that's a badass in this scene.
Yeah.
But at the end of it all, Bud gets taken out by Dudley.
Yeah.
And it's Exley who gets to make the crucial decision of, would you knowingly shoot someone in the back knowing that they were going to get away with a crime? And what does he decide? But because he's at Exley, he can still play the politics and get out of it with a medal. And Bud?
Some men get the world. Others get ex-hookers and a trip to Arizona.
And you know what? Bud may have got the better deal out of it.
I think Bud did, and and it's funny because some people might feel cheated that Bud doesn't die because people want the feeling of the grit and the reality. But I don't. I think that's another convention the movie is flouting. Instead of going the dark route, it's like no, we'll give a little bit of a happy ending into this.
I also think he's been neutered a little bit because he's been so badly, like his jaw's wired shut. He's not in good shape. He's not going to be able to beat up people the way he used to.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, for him.
Yeah.
So Theo. I don't know what that was. I'm trying to be hard-boiled. So Theo, what do you think?
The conclusion of the story here, our story, not the movie, is that really, are there any heroes in this story? You know, we're talking, about this whole time about what's fake, what's real, what's the hidden underneath?
Yeah.
What is it? And the question is, well, there's not really, there's protagonists and antagonists, but there's not really heroes, there's not really bad guys.
Yeah, we're left with a dead guy, a guy who hit his girlfriend, and a guy who killed the bad guy by shooting him in the back.
Yeah, maybe Dudley Smith is like a bad guy. We might get a real bad guy in this.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the closest we get.
His 4 daughters are probably crying, though.
Right.
That's a good thing for you. My wife and 4 fair daughters are at the beach in Santa Barbara.
But really what that's saying, to hammer it home one more time, things are imperfect.
I love this movie and I love that message.
Cheers. Next time on this series, we just covered LA Confidential, which is a film noir from '96, and we decided we're going to go backwards in time and do Chinatown from '74. which is another film noir-like movie, although it's not technically in the film noir era. So tune in to see what we feel about that one. Also, it's an LA film noir specifically, so there you go. If you liked what you just saw, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. We're pretty new to this, so anything would help to get us more out into the universe would be great. Share what you just saw on the social medias.
But above all else,
Keep watching movies.